Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Market Talk, which is a feature brought to you by Catering Insight and Food Service Equipment Journal. We're delighted, myself and Claire Nichols, who's on the call today, to be joined by Chris Jones, Group Managing Director of Lincat, IMC, Britannia and Middleby Commercial Food Service. I think that's right, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, that's correct.
Perfect. And also Alex Demetriou, the Managing Director of Regency Purchasing Group. Thank you both for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Great to see you. Obviously, you're two businesses that come at the spectrum from different ends. Chris, obviously, on the manufacturing side, and Alex from a procurement and operator point of view. Alex, just to begin with you, do you want to give us a quick overview of your business? Because I understand you, as well as providing procurement services to operators, you also own and operate businesses from a hospitality point of view yourself.
Yeah, that's right. So the way that the purchasing group actually started off the back of our own operating sites, where we had about 25 originally and then diversified into procurement. I mean, as we are today, we own some restaurants, hotels and the Grand Pier in Weston-super-Mare. So sort of hospitality, leisure, and it all the way sort of into sort of a la carte through to sort of fast food. And then off the back of that, we've developed a procurement model where we look after just over 3,000 other businesses. So quite a broad range across the industry. Sadly, only a few hospitals and care homes. So the bulk of what we do, because our background is hospitality and leisure, that tends to be how we lead with our purchasing group. That's our area of expertise. So it's been quite a challenging time, should we say, but we're starting to see some green shoots now.
Yeah. So how would you describe the lockdown period for you so far then? It was obviously very much a firefighting exercise at the beginning, but are you starting to emerge from that now?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think as difficult as it was and as many sleepless nights as there were, I actually think the lockdown bit was the easy bit. So everyone was talking about how difficult it was. Actually, operationally, it was fairly straightforward. It was close your doors, don't reopen them. And everyone can deal with that message. And of course, we were given the support from the government in terms of our staff, which I thought was a wonderful scheme and saved us all having to make some very difficult decisions about very loyal members of staff that have worked with us for a number of years. And so I was quite pleased with the support that we had. But yeah, I think that was the easy bit. The difficult bit is how do you now navigate out of that? And that's really the big challenge that we're seeing, as well as all of our members. So I think, like I said, closing was easy, reopening significantly more difficult.
Likewise, Chris, for the Lincat group and the various Middleby brands, did you guys have to close down at all, or were you actually able to keep operating throughout lockdown?
Yeah, it was difficult to begin with, but our first and foremost mindset really was to try and protect we wanted to stabilise divisions right across the UK, because we wanted to remain fully operational. Which we managed to successfully do. One of the major principal objectives that came down from our group CEO globally, talking globally, all the global companies, was to protect our employees and well-being. So we took vigorous measures to put in place under the government guidance for each country, and we went a step further as well. We invested in IT so people could stay and work from home. We looked at various different shift patterns and different procedures within production, because it was very clear to us that we wanted to support our distributor network and obviously our chain accounts, national accounts and the end users. So we had to go through a process very, very quickly to become operational, scale down the operational aspects across all divisions, but more importantly, remain operational. So yes, we've scaled back production naturally. We've taken advantage of some of the furlough agreements, but all divisions have remained operational. And just picking up on Alex's point, and a good point, it's now about how we look and how we move forward in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's your kind of plan then? Are you doing, say, a phased re-ramping up of production, or is there a particular roadmap ahead of you?
Okay, so if you look, it's different for each division across the UK. So Lincat being the main manufacturing plant doesn't build to order, so it always creates a certain level of stock. So we always carry high levels of stock, so we're well prepared in any situation. And coming out of post-COVID-19, I'm not sure if that's the correct terminology, but hopefully we're starting to see a new normal. We will be well positioned. Similar to IMC, they hold a stock level, but IMC is very project based. So you look at ventilation, it's normally built to order, and waste management, but they still have an element of stock. Middleby UK, they hold a element of stock because they don't manufacture it, and they hold the brands for mainly a big part of MUK's business is the US chains in the UK.
Okay. And Chris, there's been collaboration from a product perspective between your Lincat and IMC brands, particularly in the healthcare side. Could you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're referring to the hand wash and sanitizing sort of range of products. That was actually born at IMC. So the MPD team at IMC produced the hand wash stations, and Lincat's MPD, so we used leverage of both across the divisions. They've now started to develop new innovation in this range, and we've moved production from IMC to Lincat now because of the volume uptake of such the project range. We can build in a more efficient way because it fits the more of the Lincat production model.
Okay. Do you think that this crisis, will it force you to look at manufacturing in a different way when business returns to normal?
I think that efficiencies regarding across the plants, they are probably where they need to be. However, we are currently working on a new range of products with true innovation, because Middleby is very agile, as you know, and we're speaking to our worldwide sister companies and learning from each other, because different countries have got different ideas, they've got a different market sector that they supply. So we are bringing out probably a peripheral range of new products to fight COVID-19, and it will possibly take a new dimension of production, but I think in the main, production will remain the same.
Okie dokie, thank you for that, Chris. Alex, I'm just interested in what you've seen in terms of catering equipment purchasing behaviour across the lockdown. What is there anything that's particularly stood out to you with that in that regard?
I think we've certainly seen people pegging back. So we knew that we had certain customers that were due to open new sites, refurb others, and we've certainly seen a stop on that type of expenditure. So I think people were hugely panicked as soon as they saw it coming, and I think it was quite late on. I think people perhaps didn't give this the credence that it deserved, or that, you know, the world that we've now ended up in. But we've certainly we knew of a number of customers that were opening new sites that now, you know, they have no intention of opening or refurbing existing sites. Although interestingly, now that the world is starting to wake up and people are starting to get used to the fact that they are going to have to operate in a new format, we are now starting to see people spending because they're having to reinvent their units. So we spent some time with one of the major sort of leisure attractions that we support, and they're having to change their restaurant into a takeaway facility. Now, to enable them to do that, they're cutting sections out of windows. There's a queuing system outside rather than bringing people into the restaurant where the attraction is. And in that scenario, I know they are investing in equipment because they need to bring the kitchen closer to that serving point. So I think that we will see some spend. I'm not sure whether it will plug the gap, given, you know, what we perhaps have missed out on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, spend and the whole industry, the capacity is going to be vastly reduced. So do you think that that is sustainable? Are there going to be enough businesses and enough custom around for everyone to survive?
I think it's a real challenge. I mean, and equally, we don't know what the rules are yet. So we're talking about social distancing, and at the moment, you know, our government has issued a 2-metre guidance. You know, if you look at Denmark as an example, Denmark are operating at 1 metre, Australia are operating at 1.5 metres. You know, we're not quite sure exactly where the science lies, and I think the concern that we have, and if you take one of our restaurants in particular, is 90-seater and at 2 metre rule, we lose 70% of our seats. So the restaurant simply isn't designed, and most people's restaurants and bars are not designed to operate and make money at 30%, in which case a decision has to be made as to whether we open at all. So that's just one scenario, and then we have others, and perhaps the pier is another good example of that. We are open all year round, but we rely on the money from spring and summer to get through autumn and winter, we've already lost, you know, the spring and certainly the Easter. We could, depending on how much of the summer we lose, and that clock ticks every day, it might not leave enough, certainly for coastal businesses, to be able to get through it all. So we are in a position whereby we are looking at things by the day and saying, well, actually, you know, do we just reopen in April? And I certainly know some of our operating members have already made that decision, that you know, their business is mothballed till next year. Because of course, what we're all trying to do, I think most of the industry accepts that we're not making money this year, that we're principally going to break even. So it's all about surviving and then hopefully thriving in sort of 2021. And but you know, a couple of smart people that I've spoken to that have chosen to close, do you think that you on the surface you think it's a bit defeatist, but in reality we could all work really hard as operators trying to break even? Well, they could sit at home and plan for next year and end up in exactly the same position as us. So if you own the freehold to the business, if it's not costing you a huge amount, if it's just the insurance and the maintenance cost, you know, you might be better placed to stay closed. And I think we will see some of that. I just sincerely hope we don't see a lot of it, because so many jobs are reliant on the industry being open and operating. We have to find a new way of doing it.
Sure. Alex, as well, coming at it from a procurement perspective, and the fact that, you know, you're involved in food and the supply side, you obviously deal with a lot of supplier businesses. How difficult has that been to manage, you know, given there has been such volatility in the supply chain throughout this period?
I think it's really difficult. I think it's been difficult for the different suppliers in different areas. I mean, you look at sort of, you know, milk. You know, we all saw the news and watching sort of 2 million litres of milk being poured down drains every day. Because, well, I think the perception of the general public is that we're not eating in restaurants, we're subsequently eating, you know, out of the supermarket. So it's the same, but actually our behaviours and our patterns are inherently different. So, you know, when we are at home, we simply don't drink the same number of lattes and cappuccinos. We just drink a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and that's why all the milk's going down the drain. And we've got the same issues with beef. You know, we're not cooking fillet steaks and T-bone steaks in our houses. We, as a country, we tend to go out for that type of food. So, you know, there are things being left on the shelves and things being thrown away, and that's impacting different industries in a different way. By contrast, the brands, you know, are having a great time of it, because it's a lot of non-branded product that goes through our catering businesses. But, you know, the likes of Heinz ketchup, and, you know, think about the number of, you know, non-branded beans, for example, that are sold. Well, none of those are really being sold at the moment. Everybody in the supermarket get one Heinz product. So the thing that is changing is production of pack sizes. So there's good and bad. But again, even speaking to some of the retailers, whilst their numbers are up, they're having to employ more staff to deliver it, and there's an irregular buying pattern, and everyone's business works when you can forecast and plan. Of course, even those businesses that are winning aren't really having the best of times, because they're having to adapt their business model. So I think it's difficult everywhere, and how we come out of it again is most interesting, and that will depend on the various countries. How lockdown, you know, the impact of China's lockdown was huge, because we were exporting product. The whole of the world principally was exporting food product to China, and that stopped immediately. So some prices have gone down as well as up. So it really is. It's going to take some navigating to get through this one.
And Chris, do you see similar challenges in the equipment side? I mean, you're obviously plugged into quite a big component supply chain. What's the visibility like from that perspective at the moment?
Okay, so there's been several conversations and several notifications globally, really, regarding component supply, and some of these supply chains have collapsed. The added advantage, if I take the Middleby Commercial Food Service Group, especially Lincat and IMC, is that we started to prepare for Brexit. So we started to build our stock holding of components up to a significant level. And then obviously COVID came along, so we have now got currently a buffer that was built up for Brexit. So in the medium to long term, from a manufacturing point at the UK, we're pretty we're confident that we can continue to supply with no issues. And I go back to the Middleby worldwide connections that we can leverage worldwide, then we don't really see or foresee an issue with component supply currently.
Okay.
Sure, but what has demand been like overall then? Has it been changing week by week, Chris?
No, it's been a steady trend. Right, if I can speak about the individual divisions, because it gives you a slightly broader picture, if I may. So the industry went into shell shock a few months ago, as we all well know. An order run rate dropped off the cliff. However, that has been steadily increasing. And I would use a terminology over the last 10 days, it seems that this sleeping giant is starting to awaken. Now, the reason I say that is if you're a chain or a national account with, I don't know, several hundred or maybe a few thousand sites, it's not a case of, right, we can open our doors on the 1st of July. It's a case of you have to start investing. You have to start, you can't just open a kitchen up from a manufacturing prime cooking point of view. You actually have to, you have to visit that kitchen. You have to, there'll be service companies involved. You need to recommission it. So as they're now going through this process of recommissioning, they're identifying products that are BER'd, need replacing, because I'm under the opinion that a lot of these kitchens closed quickly. So they just shut it down and run out of the premises. So basically now they need to start recommissioning them. So we're seeing an upturn in sales because of they're starting now to get ready for hopefully opening in the first week of July. So we are seeing a steady increase, and certainly over the last 10 days at Lincat, it's been very noticeable that our order intake is increasing. Middleby UK, the division based in Wigan, they are very focused on QSR. So most of the brands service the QSR market. They have continued to see growth through the pandemic because the likes of the larger chains, Deliveroo, delivery service, that it's a growth area. Britannia Ventilation has slowed because they do traditional canopies and the project work is slowing. However, they do a portable system called a refresh unit that runs on a 13 amp plug, and you can buy modular systems. And they've been busy into the portable kitchen market because hospitals, they're at capacity, so they've been investing in portable kitchens. So they've seen a drop in traditional ventilation, but an upturn in portable ventilation. And IMC, regarding refrigeration and waste management, they've seen a drop in the UK, but more success in Europe. But to try and summarise, certainly over the last 10 days, it seems to be breathing again.
This is good news. And you mentioned before that obviously you're part of Middleby Worldwide. So has that been a benefit to you? Have they given you kind of guidance, or is it are they kind of very much leaving it down to you to manage operations?
No, Middleby Worldwide is a global entity, multi-billion-dollar turnover business, but it doesn't have layers within its business. So the senior leadership team connect probably weekly. I speak to my European CEO probably 4 times a week, and we constantly talking and learning from each other. I'll give you an example, if I may. When we launched the hand wash station from IMC into Lincat, this was localized in Australia and delivered sales volume in Australia. So that would be one aspect, one example of how we work as a global entity.
Okay. Just Alex, just bringing the conversation back to you. From an operator point of view, there have obviously been a lot of measures that the government have introduced. The most recent of which was the extension of the furlough scheme until October in some capacity. Moving forward as an operator of hospitality businesses yourself, what else would you like to see done to sort of protect the future of the industry?
I think the big challenge is around cash flow. I think that's going to be the issue. I mean, everybody that's opened the site knows how challenging it is getting it stocked out, and as sort of Chris referred to, there'll be some servicing, there'll be some replacement items that are needed. Certain businesses would not have been left in the right state. It would have been a cut and run, especially I think for the chains in particular. But I just think that it's the cash that will dry up very, very quickly when you're restocking your premises. To that end, I think we've got deferral on VAT. My concern with that is that it's just a stay of execution for certain people. I think the furlough scheme was excellent. I really liked the fact that government did that, because what it enabled us to do was it meant that actually the staff were made safe, rather than unscrupulous, I guess, business owners taking a huge grant, putting it in their pocket and making people redundant. So it protected the staff, and that was really the thing that we were trying to balance up. You're trying to create the longevity of and sustainability of the business, but at the same time look after your people, and that's a very difficult balance. I think that government helped people do that really well, but I do think that perhaps a concession on VAT moving forward might be useful. My understanding of the furlough scheme, they haven't announced exactly how it works, but there will be a contribution. I think what would be really useful, and I'd actually like to have seen it before August, is if restaurants can open from the 4th of July, I think some people would want to open on a part-time basis, so perhaps just open the weekends. So if we could have brought our staff back for 2 days and paid them for the 2 days, and then the government paid them for the other 3 of their 5-day working week, that type of flexibility I think would be useful to ease people back in and to understand how it looks moving forward. So we know that we've had a number of our operators that have opened, that had traditional restaurants, have opened up a takeaway model. They've had to unfurlough their staff to do that. They've subsequently lost money and turn that operation off again. So there's been a lot of people starting takeaway, stopping again, because their product isn't renowned for it. And when you think of a takeaway, you go to those places that you would ordinarily go for a takeaway. You don't think of the restaurant that has now turned into a takeaway. So I think there's certainly some challenges, but I think the government are doing a reasonable job, but it has to be more industry specific, because each industry will have its own challenges. I was pleased that they issued £100,000 grant to zoos, for example, because the welfare of animals and maintenance of animals, whilst there's no money coming in and those attractions are closed, I think that shows me that they're starting to look at the detail of each industry, and I hope they continue with that same plan. If they do, I think they'll give good operators a good chance of getting through it. Yeah,
in addition to that, I think this crisis has obviously taught a lot of businesses that they can operate in a flexible way, and operate in a different way to perhaps they would have imagined before the crisis. I just wondered, is there anything that this crisis has taught you about your business that you didn't necessarily know beforehand?
I'm not sure it's taught us that we can't survive a pandemic without help. I'm not sure that we've learned a lot yet. I think I still think there's more to learn. Like I said, I really do think that as challenging as the last few months have been, I honestly believe, and I don't wish to sort of put a mountain in front of people that already feel like they've climbed one, but the learning happens now. The learning is when you reopen, and we will have limitations in our businesses that we cannot change. We cannot change the fact that we have a pier that is 1/4 of a mile out at sea, is 98,000 square feet of space, but to get to it, there is a narrow walkway because it was built in that way. Equally, one of the restaurants we own is the oldest building in Weston. It's a little thatched cottage, and you can't change the makeup of it. It is what it is. So there are elements that aren't as flexible, and equally, some people have menus. Now you can reinvent your whole product, but one of our restaurants, and in particular the thatched cottage that I'm referring to, is famous for its steaks. Now we can't sell steak to take away because you order yours, Andrew, medium rare, and by the time it gets to you, it's well done. So we don't have that luxury. Now we can reinvent it, of course we can, but it won't be the same model. So I think the learning happens now, and I think there's more detail to understand about the cross-contamination of this virus, because there's talk about issuing gloves and masks, and I think masks could help, but certainly gloves. You can issue gloves, but The minute someone sneezed or, you know, and the glove is contaminated, then it's game over anyway. So I think there's an awful lot to learn. I don't think we've learned enough yet. There's certainly more to be done.
And likewise, just a quick last question to you, Chris, on similar lines. What lessons do you feel that you and Lincat and the Middleby group in the UK have learned throughout this?
I actually think that what we've learned very, very quickly is that our industry needs to become a lot closer and it currently is. And I actually think that the COVID-19 is already driving that. The hospitality industry has always been incestuous. Everybody knows everybody. Last 2 weeks, I've probably spent my calls like we're doing now, talking to the various industries. Very evident that we need to change. We need to change what we're doing as a business. We need to look at new products. We need to look at innovation. We need to, and I believe the big question is, how will these independent businesses offer consumer confidence? That's what I've learned. That's the big question, because yes, you've got the independents and you've got the groups, and they're going to have to invest. You know, is it sneeze screens? Is it signage? Is it, as Alex said, reducing capacity or covers in restaurants? But how do we drive consumer confidence? Because you can invest millions and millions of pounds in a group of restaurants, but if you can't get the clientele there, then you're dead in the water. So it's how, as an industry, we get that consumer confidence back. And I believe that will be through partnership, working with the chain accounts and the groups and the independents, and bringing innovation to the kitchens, back of house, and how we serve in front of house. So I think, as Alex said, we're on this big, very, very steep learning curve. But I'd like to think that from Middleby and obviously Alex and his business, the hospitality industry is small enough that we all talk to each other and we come up with innovation, and we will come strong out of COVID-19.
Yeah, well, that's a very positive note to end on, and we obviously hope that's the case. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Alex, for joining us for this edition of Market Talk. Interesting to get your insights into the business. Welcome. Best of luck moving forward, and we'll be back with another edition soon. Thank you.